Stout. I'm the STR loan guy. Most of you know me from either trying to get approved to do an Airbnb, or maybe I've helped you fund one of them. Um, love this community. It's just gets me excited. My whole career, I've always been really into showing people how they can acquire more real estate. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm excited to have Kenny Bedwell here. He's with STR Insights. He's got some just incredible data that he's developed where he's searching, constantly looking at top markets. He's also an expert in finding top producing Airbnbs. He's going to tell us a little bit about that and how he can help people find a great property. But more than that, he's put together the best 25 properties, or not 25 properties, sorry, the top 25 markets to invest in 2025. I'm real excited to see the list and hear about, what makes each of these markets unique. And from with that said, I'll let Kenny join us.
Hey, how's it going, Matt? Thanks for having me on, man.
Really good. Yeah, it's good to see you, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you here. And we got some people from all over. Looks like Heidi from Portland, Oregon. So awesome. I was actually born in Portland, so I saw that stood out to me. I've got a sister there, so I don't know what part of Portland you live in, Heidi, but we visit Tigard. You know where that is. She will know. So anyway, awesome.
Yeah, Heidi's awesome. She's been looking at a lot of properties up there.
Nice. We got Henderson, Nevada, and San Diego as well. This is great. So we got a few other folks listening in too. So anyway, well, thanks for having me on, Matt. Excited to tell people about some top markets.
Yeah, I'm excited too. One thing that automatically people come to when I am talking to them about getting approved to buy a property is, where should I buy the next property? And
yep.
I always tell them, well, I know just enough to be dangerous, because I see good ideas and good places, but I really don't know how they're performing or what it is that makes that area special. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here, because I know that when it comes to amenities and what person is buying in what area and what kind of property is the best property for that market, that's just stuff I don't understand, and you've always got some great ideas about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the list is interesting. It's all around the country, and it really. So one of the things that was important to me with STR investing, and I don't know how many people, but I'm not super familiar with your audience, Matt. But everybody, if you tell me how many short-term rentals do you have, put that in the chat. Tell us how many short-term rentals you have. I think as short-term rental investors, as people are kind of putting that in the chat, as short-term rental investors, one of the things that we find that's really important when knowing where to invest is regulation. Like, you can't STR there, then why the heck are you looking there? And there's a lot of areas that people say are good investments, but you can't actually short-term rent there. And so one of the research points is not just, hey, based on data, is this a good market, but also regulation. What's the sentiment? I call it the community sentiment towards short-term rentals in that particular market, So anyway.
Yeah. And it's interesting because people often hear about regulation, and I hear them say, well, we shouldn't buy there. And it's like, no, just because it's regulated, if anything, you almost want a little bit of regulation, there's a certain level. Because if there's no regulation, there's always the fear that it's just going to come in and get worse, right?
Right, absolutely. So I'm actually in some heavily regulated markets, pros and cons. One market. So I live in New York. Everyone who's listening, and one of the hard things that with New York is they're constantly changing their regulations. And they've passed some really tough stuff recently. And one of the markets that I was in, they just completely said no more short-term rentals. And so thankfully, I kind of knew that was coming and kind of prepared myself over the last year to pivot.
It's gotta be a shock.
Yeah, it was. And it's crazy, some of the stuff they pass. So we have to be careful, but at the same time, I have a market where they're open to, they have strict regulation, but they put a cap on the number of short-term rentals. And if you have a permit and you're part of that like cap, then you're fine. Like I know San Diego, California has a cap too. I see Casey's from San Diego. And so like being legal protects me from market saturation and actually gives me a really big advantage in a market where there are very few hotels. So that market is Watkins Glen, New York. The other market that I was in was Buffalo, New York. I know Heidi asked about that one, so in the chat there. But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Heidi, that's awesome. The property you have, the floating home, I love it. It's a really cool property.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, I see that Columbia River. I'm sure. Yeah, it's a really interesting area. It's a beautiful area too, Columbia River. So yeah, cool.
So what are you looking for when you're trying to find new markets, Kenny? I mean, is there any secret recipe to, dialing in a new area or?
Yeah. So in a market, I'm mainly looking at, so we talked about regulations, but another one too that gets underestimated a lot are expenses. So the expenses, like for example, insurance rates, but a big one that's like no one ever talks about are tax reassessments. And so, for example, there was a market in Michigan. We were looking at a property, and it was $600,000 property. And we got it under contract, and they were currently paying about $7,000 in taxes, which that's a lot for a $600,000 property, $6K or $7K in taxes. Yeah. And so but that was what they were currently paying. So we called the county and we said, hey, this is going to get reassessed. What's it going to get reassessed to? And they looked at it and they're like, oh, this is going to get reassessed to, I need like a drug roll or something for this, $22,000.
Wow.
On a $600,000 property, $22,000 tax bill. So although the revenue was good, it just the tax bill would completely destroy the cash flow for that property. So, or the profit.
I've seen that a lot in Texas, especially.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have to be careful, especially with the markets, like understanding like where and beyond just is the revenue there. Because that's obviously a big important one. Like, hey, our property's making money, but not just gross, but net, because that's ultimately what we're looking for is the net revenue. So, yeah. So expenses, to answer your question, that was a long answer, but expenses.
No, expenses are huge, yep. Though. I mean, it's crazy. We have loans we'll take 80% of what we think the gross revenue is, and that barely covers, especially if it includes cleaning fees, it barely covers taxes and cleaning fees. And you're like, but we have programs that'll approve the loan that way, but that doesn't mean I would write my pro forma on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So expenses is another one. And then finally, the last biggest piece is obviously revenue. So meaning like but it's revenue to purchase price ratio. It's not just about, hey, do properties make like a lot of gross? Because there's a lot of big markets. Like for example, I think of like a Phoenix, Scottsdale area, they make a lot of money there, but what's the purchase price relative to that revenue? And does it justify that? And you'll hear me throw out terms gross ROI. So gross ROI, we'll quickly define that. It's just the gross yearly revenue divided by the purchase price of that property or the median listing price in that market. When I talk about markets, I'll say median listing price, but I'll use gross ROI. So that's what that means. And I'm looking.
So is there a ratio that you're trying to get to, like a 1.5 or?
Well, I look at it like a percentage. So I say like 15. So on average, properties here are grossing 15% of what the median listing prices are.
Okay, got it.
So I say 15%. I mean, it could be 20, it could be whatever. But for me personally, like when I'm investing, it's kind of a high level metric to know, like if a property can gross I like 20%. I call it 20%.
20%. Okay.
20% gross of what the purchase price is. It's probably going to be a really good deal or opportunity. So,
interesting.
So Heidi says my gross was 43K. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, when you say gross, does that include cleaning fees or was that after?
It can, yeah, it can include cleaning fees. So it depends on the person and what they want to how they want to calculate it. But for all intents and purposes, it's a high level metric to know if
Okay.
the entry point is worth, if the juice is worth the squeeze in a particular market. Does that make sense?
For sure. For
So,
sure.
so Heidi, you said my gross was 43K. So what was the purchase price of the property? And the gross ROI changes is different in each market. So so like for example, we might see 5% gross ROI on average for a market and 20% for another market. So if that's 200K, so what we would take, Heidi, if the purchase price was 200K, so 43 divided by 200 gives us a 21.5% gross ROI. That's really good. So yeah, that's a good starting place. That's not how we want to underwrite properties. And Matt, you definitely, that. We have like a whole sheet
True.
to break things down. But it's a good starting place so that we're not wasting our time in markets that don't make sense. So,
and that seems to be where I constantly am battling. I can't tell you how many deals I haven't done because they're bringing me these terrible properties in markets that I just don't see how they're ever going to make it. I mean, do you bank on being, I've had some people say, well, if I'm going to be in the top 10%, then it's going to be worth it. Do you bank on that when you're doing your projections, that you're going to be that good, or that the stars are going to align? I mean, or do you assume that maybe you're going to be average?
My properties? Well,
yeah.
So I talk about this a lot. Like, we're always looking for what I call the moat, meaning the thing that separates you from everybody else. So although the average could be good, I'm looking to be top 10% or even top 1% in a market. And in order to do that, I have to be looking for properties that are unique or have something unique about them. That could be the structure, or the location, or the quality of the property, or the amenities offered. But I'm looking for something that separates myself. So for example, I bought a property in Kentucky with a business partner, and this huge, it's a 9-bedroom, 7-bath property. So that's kind of unique in and of itself, but the house itself is actually pretty. It's just a brick house. It's not that pretty. We're gonna have to completely redo the outside to make it look good. But we are adding, this is in Kentucky on the Bourbon Trail. We're adding a little mini putt-putt course. It's a 9-hole mini putt-putt course, which that's okay. That's a little bit unique in terms of amenities. There are some people with putting greens and maybe golf simulators. But here's the thing, and I call it the feather in the hat. We are adding a custom, like we're making it bourbon themed. So there's going to be little barrels and it's going to glow in the dark and all this other cool stuff. So it's going to stand out on top of all the other things about the property that makes it special. So not only is it a 9-bed, 7-bath and with that many bedrooms and has a pool and a little pond and a hot tub and all this great stuff, it also is going to have this like mini putt-putt thing that's going to be hero image number 1. So I'm looking for properties where I can add something to it, or maybe it already has it, that helps market that property to stand out.
What would be cool is a secret door that, opens up into a speakeasy or something too.
I've seen those too.
Awesome.
I've definitely seen those. Where they have like the little secret door and a speakeasy poker table kind of thing, with a karaoke bar and stuff like that. So yeah, I've seen that as well.
Nice.
But we choose something unique that helps us stand out. But it's based off. It's not just random. It's based off of the guest avatar, who is coming to the market. And so when we go through this markets list, one of the questions that I'm sure I'll get is who the heck is going to these places? Why are they going to these places? And if you start with that information, then hunt for properties, that's the best process.
Yeah, I agree completely. Like, you'll see the mentality of, I got to have these many bedrooms. And it's like, well, if you're buying a property that's going to mostly be used by fishermen, for example, is that really the market? Do you really need a 5-bedroom property when your average person there is just coming with their 2 friends,
Yeah.
Just dialing that in, but that's great. Well, I'm excited to get started and hear about these markets. Kenny, you've got, I know you've got a great list for us. where should we start? I'll let you jump in on it.
So I figured what we could do is start work our way backwards. So I'll do the top 10, and then what I'll do at the very end, if people stick around. So obviously you can answer questions about the markets throughout. But what we'll do at the end is I have a whole list of over 80 different markets across the entire country, different destination types. So what are the top beach markets, mountain markets, urban markets, lake markets? I think there's like 4 or 5 destination types. And so I can give you guys the link. It's free. You can download it. It's a free report of those markets and the data. But on this, we'll just do the top 10 and I'll work backwards from 10. Because if I start from 1, then everybody will leave after what?
Cool. This sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So let's start. So obviously number 10. So my 10th market that I have on my list is Bradenton, Florida. So Bradenton, Florida is right outside of Tampa. And that the average gross ROI there is about 12%. So one thing to keep in mind with my top list, this is really important. Anytime you see like a list of top markets, there's always some inherent biasness with it. Meaning like there's 12,000 markets across the United States. And wow. If we were to take literally the top 10 markets, it'd probably be places in the middle of nowhere that no one's ever heard of and no one would actually go and invest there. So there has to be a little bit of like, based on demand, like some other factors in play that truly say like why. So this is more of like my top 10 pick where I'm seeing deals and opportunities. That's kind of how I do it. It's like, where am I seeing the most deals and opportunities versus, like just like pure numbers,
And by deals and opportunities, you mean like maybe the market's not so saturated, or maybe there's,
yeah, so there's saturation.
Prices are not so crazy right now or something, or.
Exactly. So, I mean, it kind of goes into play like gross ROI, but also, we talked about expenses, we talked about regulation, we talked about, just purely the revenue. So all these factors come into play, all these variables come into play that helps us know, hey, maybe this is a really, really, this is a good opportunity, or we're seeing the most opportunities here. Okay. Now, does that mean that somebody can't find like Heidi? She's got that 21.5% gross ROI deal. Well, that's going to be better than Bradenton. It's probably going to be better than most of the markets on the list, but that's a specific property. Collectively, as an average, are properties in that market doing that? Probably not. So Heidi's got a special thing going on. So yes, you can definitely beat these markets with individual properties around the country, but collectively, it's going to be challenging when you compare numbers to apples to apples kind of thing. So, yeah. Anyway.
That makes sense.
Okay, cool. So Bradenton, Florida is my number 10 market. Bradenton, Florida, for those who don't know, it's south of Tampa. This is it's not Bradenton Beach, or it's near Bradenton Beach or Anna Maria Island. And it is, so the gross ROI average here is at 12%. Okay, so at 12%, you're making a little bit of cash flow. Cash flow is just your profit at the end of the year. It's a good beach market to be in. There's a lot of good opportunity here. Average revenue is about $47,000. Purchase price range. You could do a 2 or 3 bedroom, and we had a client last year get something for $410. So I mean, that's not bad. And like I said, remember, we're looking at averages when we look at the report, but I'm going to share examples of properties in these markets where the numbers were a lot better. And once again, it's just about probability and looking for the actual properties beyond just the market metrics. So
when you're in a beach market like that, are you trying to be within so many blocks of the beach? Is there a rule of thumb like that, or?
With Bradenton, sure. So most beach markets, you obviously want to be as close as you can to the beach, walking distance or views of the beach, all those other factors. But Bradenton isn't like a traditional beach market, so it's a little bit different. So Bradenton is kind of like an urban town near the beach kind of thing. So what I mean by that is, number one, IMG Academy, which is a sports school, big, like high school. Like it's a private high school where athletes who aspire to go to colleges, like play D1, sports, they go to IMG, and IMG plays the top schools around the country or whatever. They're supposed to be like the best coaches and all this stuff. IMG Academy is located in Bradenton. So you've got that kind of like traffic driver. So not only do you have the beaches nearby, which Anna Maria Island is really, really nice, but super expensive. Okay. And then you have Bradenton Beach, which is nice, less expensive, but not as nice as Anna Maria. But you also have other traffic drivers in Bradenton, though, which is IMG Academy. You have Tampa nearby, which is a major city. And so you have business travel, you have vacation travel, you have there's all different types of travel. So the demand, it's a highly trafficked area. So
Okay, that's awesome. If anybody has questions, feel free to just put them in the chat, and we'll get to them as we go, and we'll do our best. So
Floridian San Diego, that's funny. Okay, yeah. So if anybody has any questions, it's coming because of the distance to St. Petersburg. Yeah, I mean, St. Petersburg is good. It's got a lot of regulation, so it just and Clearwater is probably where I'd want to go if I wanted to be near St. Pete. So anyway, okay, let's talk about number 9. So number 9, I like Dripping Springs, Texas, which is right outside of Austin, Texas. So Dripping Springs is part of the Texas Hill Country. So San Antonio and Austin are like in the big cities in between, and we know that, I'm sure everyone knows that a lot of those markets are growing and expanding, exploding in growth. This is going to be a more expensive market to enter in, but the ROI is going to be obviously higher than Bradenton at 14% gross ROI on average. Average revenue is about 57,000. Your purchase price is going to be honestly so that's the average, okay? But if I'm going into these markets, I'm really looking at like a 4 or 5 bedroom so I can host larger groups. Those properties tend to be better, but now we're talking 800,000 purchase price range in order to try to get revenue of 150 or higher. Okay, so if I'm Dripping Springs, although the average revenue is 57,000, I'm not going for the 2 or 3 bedrooms. I'm going for, because the prices of homes are a little more expensive there, I'm going for the big boys. I'm going for the 4s, the 5s, the 6s, and so on. But now my price point is going to jump up from 4 or 5 to now I'm 800 or more. So,
I see
fantastic opportunities there. Got to have a pool. Obviously, proximity to Austin and San Antonio are key. Dripping Springs is right outside of Austin, but you're going to be hosting bachelor party, bachelorette parties, corporate events, people traveling for wineries, people trying to get away. Properties typically tend to be a little bit newer and nicer in Texas. So that's an advantage. If you're looking for something like, I want a new construction that looks clean and whatever, not a lot of high maintenance costs, that's actually a really good market to get into. So,
what are the property taxes like? I've noticed that some areas aren't that bad in Texas, but then you go to others and it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. That's one of those things where, and we'll talk about another market where it's the property taxes are also hit or miss. It's going to be town to town, so it's kind of like, and then also the amount of land. You do need some land, but you don't need 20 acres. If you get 20 acres, it really hits you in the property taxes.
Good to know.
Yeah. All right. So Texas Hill Country, Dripping Springs in particular is my.
And who's your avatar there? I mean, would it be like just people visiting wine country, or
wine country and weddings is a big one.
Weddings.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think I've heard of some bachelorette party-esque type themed properties around there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So I definitely think yeah, so Heidi said getting 10 acres and a few tiny houses. No, that would definitely work. I'm trying to gross higher revenue. So I have seen people do the tiny house thing with like multiple tiny homes around it. But keep in mind, like that's a little bit different than like buying just a single family home and comparing it to, like a 2-bedroom single family home versus a bunch of little tiny homes. Those are obviously going to do really well.
Just isn't there yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's just no financing for tiny homes. Not at least not like there is for regular homes.
Right. Yeah. I think we talked about that on my podcast too. So still waiting for that episode to come out. I think maybe next week. We'll see. I'll let you know though. So for those of you who don't know, I do have a podcast called Cash Flow Positive. I interviewed Matt. There'll be an episode. I think he'll send it out where we talk about that a little bit in financing and some of these different areas and the types of financing available. So Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm excited to share that. It was a good one.
But I think to answer your question, so we talked about there's wineries, there's weddings, and then there's a lot of, because Austin and San Antonio are really exploding in growth. So there's a lot of like corporate events and just group things where they're trying to get away from and outside the cities, like within driving distance. And so that's the area they go to. They don't go north because there's nothing north, you know? So between San Antonio and Austin, that's really it. Unless they want to.
And how far from Austin is it?
Well, Dripping Springs is probably like, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
So, and then Wimberley, New Braunfels, Canyon Lake, Fredericksburg is another one too. It's kind of a region. I just prefer Dripping Springs, a little bit closer to Austin, but the other areas are just, if you have a lower price point, I would probably look in some of those other areas, not in Dripping Springs. So.
Yeah. Good to know.
Okay. Cool. Coming in at number 8. This one's probably the most remote one that rarely gets talked about, and it's just because it's far away. It's Fairbanks, Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So, super affordable.
Not exactly where I could just drive over there and check it out though. If I need
No. That's definitely where you want to have somebody like good teams and resources, boots on the ground. One of my properties, I do live within driving distance, but I don't go to it. I go to it once a year because I have a good team, local team on the ground that can handle any issues. So it's definitely possible. But Fairbanks, Alaska, dude, it's so affordable. Like you're talking like a $200,000 to $250,000 house, like a 2 or 3 bedroom. And these houses,
wow.
the average revenue there is about $36,000. And so I mean, like it makes a lot of sense from some, like especially summer traffic. It's a big seasonality, but even in the wintertime, you get the Northern Lights. People travel there for Northern Lights. They want to go ice fishing. They go dog sledding and do something with like build igloos or whatever. But Fairbanks has a lot of wintertime traffic too, not just during the summertime. That's why I like Fairbanks. There's Anchorage and there's some other parts of Alaska too, but they're mainly impacted by the summertime, and so less wintertime travel. Fairbanks is a little bit more year-round, but obviously heavier in the summer. Most people go to Fairbanks to see the Northern Lights, though, in the wintertime.
Okay. Yeah, Pam asked the question. Yeah, we'll be sharing a link with Kenny's list. He's actually got 10 that we're reviewing now, and then there's a link to what you said, up to another 80 different top markets that all over, them kind of categorized by area. We'll put that in the chat. We'll also share this whole presentation later.
Yeah, we're kind of we're not spoiling the goods right now, Pam. So we'll get you the link and everything at the end. This will be recorded, and you should be able to get the I'll give the link to Matt too, to send out an email to download the list, the free list. And so we just want to leave you guys in suspense, so you'll stay on and pay attention. That's partially true though. But yeah,
well, we want to hear from you. If you have questions about these markets, chime in. That's why we're here. I think what's hard to understand is your avatar of your guest, and Kenny really has that dialed in. I think, it seems like the people that are good at identifying properties spend as much time at analyzing who is going to go to these things, so they know what to spend their money on amenities on, right? I mean, isn't that the secret recipe, really? I mean, you're not going to put if you're in Scottsdale, people are going to go golfing, you're not going to put amenities outside that are like an outdoor bowling alley. I mean, maybe it would work, but I mean, isn't that kind of the idea, is knowing who your client is?
Yeah. So Rachel asks, are these markets mostly owner managed? Are they major PMs managing? I definitely would say, like, most of these, I don't really know the answer to that, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know, how many owners versus like property managers. I would probably say it's going to vary, but I would also say that most of these are going to be owner managed. So they're not to say there aren't property managers in the area, but a lot of these markets, owners, because we know that people who are managing their own properties tend to do better than property management companies
a lot better
as a whole, like on average. And so that's why a lot of these markets, they're probably going to be majority owner managed, but there are property managers in there that can do very well. It's just, being wise with who you choose if you do go that route. All right. So we talked about Alaska. I know it's kind of like a little bit wild, so we don't spend too much time on it. Let's go to some other places of the country. So the 7th market on the list is South Haven, Michigan. South Haven.
Wow.
Yeah. So does anyone know
what's the attraction there?
So the attraction in South Haven is for anyone who knows the area or has been around there before, is they call a lot of the time Chicago money. So it's in the southwest portion of Michigan on Lake Michigan, and people from Chicago will go in vacation along that area, along that coastline. It's about 2 to 3 hour drive from Chicago, and they'll go on vacation there, especially during the summertime. But near South Haven, you also have Grand Rapids and some other stuff. South Bend's not too far away. South Bend, Indiana, where Notre Dame is. That brings in a lot of people. And also you have some wintertime stuff. Like right now, like people go snow sledding. There's actually some ski hills around there, like hills. We're not talking mountains like Utah.
That's good though.
Snowbird or any, Park City or anything, mountains, but there's some stuff around there. But but South Haven, it's definitely a very heavy summertime market, but think lake. Like that's where you want to be, on the lake with lake views. These towns, there's some state parks near there too, that have like these sand dunes that were created by the lake over time. And you can go like 4-wheeling and stuff too. It's really, really popular. Very kind of localized market. So people aren't flying into South Haven. They're traveling from around. It's a drive-in destination. So really good market. I know a lot of people who are invested kind of along that Michigan coastline, all doing very well. Really like it. Just watch out. Village to village regulation can vary, and also property taxes, like we mentioned before. So, yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah,
I think good. Yeah, I guess I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. So, I've got some questions. I see some questions more about like me. So I'll move from the markets. I'll come back to them. But so I myself, I guess I didn't really intro myself, but so from a short-term rental owner perspective, I do have short-term rentals. So right now I have 3. I've had 6 at one point, and I've downgraded as I've sized up. So I started with a 1-bedroom and I scaled up to 6, and then I've downgraded. Now I have my smallest property is a 5-bedroom. So I have a 9, a 7, and a 5 right now. So I just got rid of my 1 and 2 a couple months ago. So as I scale, I like to I downgrade, so I increase my cash flow, but also minimize the amount of time I have to spend on all the properties. So I'm not about doors, I'm about quality. But I do manage my properties. I do have a lot of I use a lot of virtual assistants to assist in that, but I don't use property management or co-host. I think it's too expensive. And something that you can automate a lot of the technology and resources. So Heidi asked a question about, is lakefront there better or spread out with land? That's actually a really, really good question. So lakefront is optimal, but it's more expensive. So if you find a property with a lot of land and it has a pool, there's actually the ROI is higher on those than the lakefront properties, because lakefront is just really, really expensive. So when I say expensive, I mean $1 million or more to have those views, right? And so like the revenue gets tougher. But when you have a property that's 600,000 or 700,000, that can generate the same revenue because it has land and the amenities. I'm going with the land, but the lakefront is obviously like kind of like the number one traffic driver there. Just finding the right deal would be trickier than
being close to the lake is probably pretty good. I mean, Rhonda, to answer your questions a little bit about self-managing, I have a oceanfront property in St. Augustine, Florida, on Crescent Beach that I manage from Salt Lake City. And at first it was, a little scary, but I came into it having been a long-term landlord for years and years, mostly renting to military people. And I'd scaled up that business to all over the country, because what I realized is that if I understood my renters, I didn't really have to be there to rent to them. And even if it was a property, like I have some in Hill Air Force Base close to me, that were, close enough to go over there, I wouldn't go over there anyway. I was always getting on the internet and finding somebody to resolve issues, because I just didn't have time, or it wasn't worth my time. I'd rather hire somebody. And technology is so huge now. I've never had an issue self-managing. I mean, if I need something, I can get on Thumbtack and I can find a person down the street. And I just know my properties better, and I think they do a lot better because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, so I know Heidi said I just found a beautiful house on a 2.5 with a pool on a creek. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I would just make sure it's kind of near one of those towns, and also bedroom count too. I like the higher bedroom counts in South Haven area in Michigan. But anyway, so just saw that question there. But I mean, going back to what you said, Matt, I know I'm kind of bouncing around here, but going back to what you said,
no, you're good.
Managing from Salt Lake to St. I mean, that's big. That's really big. So if you're able to pull that off, I mean, anyone can pull off Alaska, So,
one of my clients, I mean, I pull little bits of information from all the people I've helped along the way. One of the best tidbits I got on the STR management side is that my cleaning person is my business partner.
Yeah.
And
that's good advice.
I interview them, like, not am I going to get the best deal? How cheap are you going to be? Will you come at 2 a.m. on Sunday? It's okay. What is it going to take to make you happy? Give me your, tell me what you want to charge. And then when they give you the price, say, I'm going to give you $50 more if you can promise that you're going to come to my property first every day, or make it an effort to be there if I really need you. And holy cow, that's made a huge difference. And they're the ones giving me they're my eyes on the ground. I don't need to be there. They're telling me that, I had to, anyway, I can go on and on about it. The cleaning person is huge. And if you have the right crew and a backup person, you don't need a manager. That's everything.
Yep. I love that. That's 100% correct. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's keep moving. I'll come back to the Charleston question in a second, Pam, but I do want to hit some of these other markets. For those of you out west, one of my favorite West Coast markets, this comes in at number 6, is Keystone, South Dakota. So near Keystone is actually, Keystone and Custer area is it's in Keystone, is Mount Rushmore. So
okay, cool.
So I think it's like 3 or 4 million people go to Mount Rushmore every year, and this is a tiny town.
Sounds like a solid market.
Yeah, there's not a lot of hotels, and frankly, like, you got Badlands National Park. There's Leeds, South Dakota as well. It's a ski area. South Dakota is a really good market, and it's somewhat affordable. Now, if you go for the bigger properties, those can be more expensive, but I love being around like 400 to 700 range. I wouldn't go above that, and finding some good opportunities. We found, and one thing I like about this market too is the level of competition is much lower than some of these other places. So we had a client we helped find a property in South Dakota with, and so the property that was listed, it just kind of looked like an average house. It wasn't anything special about it. And we're looking through the photos, and about photo number 6 or 7, they had a picture of Mount Rushmore. And so we thought, like, okay, this is interesting. Like, is that like was this just a drone shot? Was this like a photo, taken from online? Like, why, okay, it's near there. Got it. Okay. But the person who we're looking at it with, we're like, this might actually be from the house. No way. So we called an agent. We had an agent go check out the property. And sure enough, from the back porch, there's a view of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like right there, but it's still like, you can see them, and they just weren't marketing that. That's huge.
That's insane.
Especially for an Airbnb or a short-term rental, and so we looked at, and they were already renting it as a short-term rental. It was a $500,000 property that was generating about $86,000 in gross income, which is decent. Okay, not a home run, but decent. But it wasn't furnished nice. It could use some night, but they weren't marketing the residents. which is
That's
why people are
insane.
moving there. So we scoop that sucker up. And that's
I
like kind of
bet.
the, the moral of the story is like we're looking for those opportunities in these markets that provide, but you got to have that vision. You got to be creative. You got to be looking, have that eye for it, because the best deals aren't just waving their hands at, hey, pick me, because everyone else can see it as well.
It's funny you say that, because I see a lot of properties where somebody's trying to buy one that's already running, and one of the best things to look for is terrible photos. If it's an existing Airbnb or it's managed by one of these companies, I don't want to name any companies, but you probably all know what the ones to watch out for that are famous for putting together terrible listings. That's what you want. I mean, that's a sign
Yep.
that they're probably not performing that well, and you can turn it around.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So guys need to check out South Dakota, especially the Keystone area near Mount Rushmore. Okay, number 5, we have Seneca Falls, New York. So Seneca Falls in the Finger Lakes. I have a property not in Seneca Falls, but around in this market. It does really well. Now, the reason why I really like this area, besides the fact that I have a property in this area, is the regulation. So the regulation scares, and taxes, it scares a lot of people being in New York, and people are afraid. But this is a vacation market, and the towns in the areas here rely on the traffic for vacation. So New Yorkers, people from New York City come, but the big draw. So you have over 4 to 6 million people travel through this region every single day. There's wineries, there's NASCAR racing, there's lakes. There's so much to do, camping and state parks and all this stuff. And people come here all the time. And it is truly a vacation market. But the villages or towns that just put in regulation to protect like the downtown areas and so on. But that scares a lot of people when they hear about it. They don't look at it. So the numbers are there. And there's a lot of opportunity, especially if you can get lake views. You don't necessarily have to be lakefront, and it can be extremely affordable. I have a property there I bought for $350,000 in 2022. The height of interest rates and everything. I did a DSCR loan. It was in the 7s at the time, and this is also the market saturated. All this fun stuff. I bought then, and that property last year. $350,000. It grossed me. I just ran the P&L and everything. It grossed $127,000 last year.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
Yep. And the reason why, and here's the crazy thing, it's not updated. It's not new. It was built in 1910. Now it doesn't look like a carriage house or something, but like it's not like it was probably updated in the early 2000s. I didn't do anything to it except add amenities like a hot tub. We have a theater room. We have a lot of space and stuff too that we can do these things, but like the competition is so low, and then there's just not a lot of supply that it's crazy some of the numbers that I can pull in the summertime. I'm making $40,000 in a month in the summertime.
Wow.
So I shut it. So this month we just started last week. This month and next month I shut it down, and I'm renovating the entire property and updating it. It's a big reno project we're doing, and who knows? I might do 140, 150, with this reno.
Sounds awesome.
So just updating and making it nicer for guests to use. So love that area. Lots of potential. Definitely somewhere to get excited about. So, okay, cool. I guess while we're here, let me go ahead and answer about Charleston. Charleston's really cool. I know the market well. I know you said Charleston and beach markets are kind of too independent. Charleston's regulations are extremely strict. There's only a certain area that you can STR in, and then it has to be zoned appropriately as well. So it's challenging.
I noticed that.
It's really challenging. And then if a property is listed and for sale that can be STR'd in that market, they're going to price it pretty high because they know that you can STR it. So I don't really love that market. The surrounding beach markets there, I know like St. John's Island and some of those other areas, they do okay. I just think it's a little expensive. I'm not really bullish on Charleston and the beach markets there. If you really like beach markets on that side, I'd maybe do Myrtle Beach, or I would go up to the Outer Banks area. That would probably be a better fit. So in terms of cash flow, which is what I primarily focus on. So, but okay.
Good to know.
Going around the country, we're at number 4 now. So this is the Bourbon Trail, and in particular, Shelbyville, Kentucky. So Shelbyville is a tiny town right outside of Louisville. And the gross ROI here is 20%.
That's great.
Now, I said Shelbyville in the report or the list, but really there's Frankfort, there's Lawrenceburg, there's Bardstown, there's all these little areas that fall in the Bourbon Trail. Think of Bourbon Trail like wineries. Over 4.6 million people went to these bourbon distilleries on the trail last year.
Wow.
So, and there's not a lot of hotels, there's not a lot of vacation rentals, and these big like 4 or 5 bedrooms just do some insane numbers. And I have a property there that we're working on right now. That's the one with a mini putt-putt. That's in Frankfort, Kentucky. But I do like Shelbyville as well. But the whole region is awesome. So,
yeah, I've seen some really cool properties in there too.
Yeah.
And I mean the price point isn't bad either, isn't it? It's like,
you can it isn't. I mean, you can buy stuff for we had somebody buy something for $350 and then $400, $450. It really just depends, what you're looking for. You get a property with a pool. Someone got a property for a pool for $450. It was a 4-bedroom. And wow. Yeah, I should post a link. I mean, she did an amazing job with it. It looks really good, but there's just a lot of like prices all over the place. Affordable, maybe a little more expensive as well, like in the 800s to 900s, even $1 million. So I wouldn't go over $1 million though. Just
would you say that? I mean, that seems like you're going to get a pretty large group of people in that market. You're going to want something with at least 4 bedrooms.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely try to shoot for 4 bedrooms. I wouldn't go less than that. You can. It's not like it's wrong. It's just be careful. If you're going to do less, then you need to be in one of those little tiny towns, like in the downtown area. If you go bigger, you can go further away. I mean, it's crazy what people are doing just in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. Like places where I'm like, I don't know where the heck that is. I don't know why people go there, and they're doing some crazy numbers, like over $200,000. So, yeah.
Well, and if you are the destination, it's what's funny about these amenities is that people think they need to be, down the street from the distillery. It's like, no, you can be. The distillery can be just a day trip. You're the place they want to hang out at.
Right, and I think that's important.
That mindset on.
Yeah, I think that's important too, and also people are going to multiple distilleries, so it's not like being by one is the answer. It's about being on the way to, other distilleries as well. So, anyway, good stuff. Okay, let's keep moving. So number 3, we have Shenandoah, Virginia. So there's Shenandoah National Park, and there's also there's some ski areas in there too. But this is right outside of DC and Baltimore, about 2 hours drive. And so you got millions of people go there. Beautiful area. One of the top 10 wedding destinations in the country. Shenandoah area.
Yeah. You've got was it Massanutten Resort there?
Yep, Massanutten.
How you say it? I'm always really worried I'm gonna botch.
No, there's another one there too. It's like Mickey'sville or something like that. I always mess it up, but it's another ski. Yeah, so it's right there in Massanutten. So yeah. But yeah,
there's some really interesting properties there, and some really big players. So I mean, it's interesting. Well, we can talk about that later. But yeah, just trying to finding the right place, and it seems to be a hot area for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think one of the biggest drawbacks is just inventory can be tricky. Meaning like there's just not a lot for sale, that could be a good short-term rental. So it's a good area to do some flips or reno projects. So, but
I would think.
Yep. So, okay. Near there, actually not too far away, about 2 hours away is the number 2 market, which is Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. So Berkeley Springs has a state park. It has a ski area too, like a private little resort. It's not too big of a market, but it's right outside of it's near Shenandoah. Once again, benefits from being close to Baltimore and DC, but it's very affordable. So when I look at West Virginia. West Virginia is generally affordable across the board, and there's a lot of good markets there. But you can get a 5-bedroom for $500,000, or maybe a little less. So you can get these
That's
big
awesome.
properties, cabins. Even in some of them have vacation resorts for like 550, 600, stuff around there we've seen. And so really it's a good opportunity, low price point, good ROI market. So the gross ROI here is 21%, which is really high.
Awesome.
Yeah. So especially for a market average.
Yeah, one thing that would be interesting too, the only bad thing I've heard about, maybe not that market itself, but just West Virginia in general, is it's been a little difficult for people to find people to do stuff like partners, contractors. So I'd be curious if you have where do I go? Who do I call for that kind of stuff?
So when it comes to West Virginia, there's kind of like, you want to stick closer to the towns. So Berkeley Springs, Beckley, and Davis are like kind of the three big towns. Obviously, there's some other ones, but they're not really vacation markets. So those three areas are typically where you're going to find your best resources and manpower.
Okay.
So one of the things I don't include on the list are markets that have less than 100 short-term rentals. Because if it has less than 100, then you're going to have a problem with resources. So Berkeley Springs, I think, has over 200. I need to look at the actual count, but it has quite a bit. And so that's usually an indication that there's going to be resources there to help out.
That's huge.
And especially with the amount of traffic to and travel, there's stuff nearby. But yeah, West Virginia is going to be a lot harder than say Bradenton or Dripping Springs or something like that for sure. So.
Well, and I see these properties there because I've been looking there, and they look awesome. They're like, everybody wants to get away from the city, so they want something remote and secluded and private and all that. And it's like on 20 acres, and it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, this would be amazing, and like, think of how awesome. And then you start thinking about, well, okay, if it's an hour for my cleaning lady to get there.
Yeah, that would be hard, especially if it's a smaller property too. So yeah. No, that's a good point. That's all good points. So okay. Last, and drum roll, whatever. This is the last. This is the top market I've got on the list.
All right, I'm excited.
And that market is Geneva, Ohio. Geneva, Ohio.
Where is that?
At 22% gross ROI, so it's on the northern part of Ohio, just northeast of Cleveland, Ohio. So Geneva is accessible from Cleveland, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There's some wineries around there, believe it or not, but it sits on a lake. Geneva on the lake's like really popular. And it's really, really affordable. So that's one of the advantages of being in Ohio. So Sandusky, Ohio, which is near Cedar Point, also about maybe 2 hours from Geneva, Cleveland, Akron, even Columbus, and some of these other Hocking Hills. These markets are pretty affordable to be in. Ohio is just generally a good, affordable state with good ROIs. One thing I like about Geneva in specific, though, is the amount of supply given the demand. So there's only like 200 short-term rentals there, but the demand has almost doubled year over year, which is insane. So we're not seeing that in a lot of markets. Sure, demand goes up almost everywhere, but relative to supply, usually supply is going up faster than demand, therefore we have saturation. Whereas here, supply is relatively stagnant, demand is doubling each year. So this is a quickly emerging, fast-growing market that has a lot of potential, I think, for big players to come in and have a really nice property. You're not seeing a lot of competition there. So
that's great. Yeah, saturation's huge. I mean, what I love about my property, it's a place I want to go to and retire someday, but making that choice based on that emotional choice of, wow, this is a cool property, this is my dream beach house in such a saturated market, which I am. I'm just like, there's 2,000 vacation rentals around mine. And fortunately, I have one of the coolest properties, so I'm still doing really well. But yeah, I mean, to be in and out emergence market sounds awesome.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, look, I'm lazy And I just don't like, I don't want to go into markets where I have to like spend more time just to market and compete. It's like, why do that when I can go somewhere else and put out a really good product or have a nice property and not have to worry about competing because everybody else just isn't on the same level. So
I like it.
yeah, so there's some logic. Okay, so guys, I just want to wrap up here. I do have a hard stop, so we want to be respectful of time and everything too. But if you guys want the full list and you want all the 80 markets or whatever, and by destination type and everything, I know this is kind of long, but if so, maybe I'll do this instead. I'm going to show. So if you go to, so my company is strinsights.com. Okay, so what we do is we help people find properties. If you haven't gathered that by now, we help people find deals across the country. Whether that's, hey, what markets, what should I do? But if you go to our website, and maybe I should have put this, I'm going to put this in incognito. There's a banner that'll pop up at the top here that says, hey, download our top markets report. So you can go to strinsights.com. This is the actual URL that will take you there. But it's the top 25 markets. You can fill it out, and I will personally email that list, the report, the full on report, which looks like, let's get rid of that. It looks like this. Okay. And I will send this to you, and you can check out all the different types of markets and everything for free. And then you can simply email back if you have any questions or anything like that. It goes to my personal email, and I can respond to those. So, yeah.
Guys, this is huge. I can't tell you how many months of my life just scouring, Airbnbs and, terrible AirDNA data, trying to find markets. And then I found Kenny, and it's like, wow, my mind, I was just like, somebody's doing this heavy lifting for you. And, you don't know what you don't know. And so, I highly recommend Kenny. He's been just a huge help with my business and giving me, the insights I need and the tools I need to help underwrite people's loans. And I gathered people here today because that's the number one problem I'm finding closing deals, is that the deals that I'm getting from people are terrible. They're just, I mean, maybe some of them aren't. There's always a couple that rise to the top, but in general, a lot of them are just not the greatest deals, and they're so fixated on, it has to be close enough to my house, or it has to be this, or it has to have, these amenities that I want but they're not listening to what their travelers want. And having that feedback and coaching and what's cool about Kenny is that he has different services. Tell him a little bit about what your services, just like in 30 seconds or less. Like,
yeah, for sure.
We'll find you a property, but what else do you do?
So I mean, look, guys, like we have services, like we do one-on-one consulting with people, and we help and handhold people through the process and finding. So if you're looking like, hey, I have no idea where to invest, you can reach out and we can chat and talk about not only like markets, but how to find the deals and how we can help you find deals. We also connect people to realtors and lenders. So like guys like Matt, who can help, who specialize specifically in short-term rentals. So even if you're like, hey, I already know a market, like I'm interested in Texas Hill Country. Kenny, can you connect me with someone there? Absolutely. I've got some good agents there, specialized, have the resources, the know-how for those particular markets. So just reach out. I mean, we have stuff that's paid, we have stuff that's free, and it's all there to help you and be successful and find something that makes sense for you. So
cool, Kenny. Well, just maybe share with how people would get in touch with you if they need to.
I'll put my email in the chat. You guys can reach out to me at so it's kenneth.bedwell@strinsights.com. You follow me on Instagram at Kenny_Bedwell. Have some good stuff on there. Or you can just download the report and email back, and you can respond back to my emails. But feel free to contact me if you have questions. I'm messaging people all the time. So
if you're looking to get pre-approved, there's a link there for me too. You can just click on the strloanguy.com. It goes right to my schedule, and we can get you in approval for just about any kind of property. So
definitely, guys. If you haven't got your pre-approval yet and you're seriously looking, especially if you're trying to get your first one, I know there's a few of you listening, you need to talk to Matt. In fact, that'd be the first conversation I'd have. I'd give Matt a call, have a call with him, download the report, check out some markets, and then questions come to me and I can help you and move you along. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me on, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Kenny, and look forward to talking to you. And we'll have this posted on our social media and YouTube channels. So if you want to come back to it later, you can. Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. See ya.
Yeah.